winds.
Heavy rain.
And dangerous flooding. Tropical storms and hurricanes bring many dangers with them.
Over the next half hour, we'll look at the dangers you could face during a storm.
And exactly what you need to do to properly prepare your family in order to survive.
From Chris 6 News, this is Plan, Prepare, Survive, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special. Sponsored by Window World and Flint Hills Resources.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for this special report, Plan, Prepare, and Survive.
Summer in the coastal bend of Texas means grueling heat and busy beaches. It also means keeping a careful eye on the tropics for 6 months, starting June 1st until the end of November.
Over the next half hour, we'll give you life-saving tips to prepare for whatever hurricane season has in store.
Our team of weather experts will walk you through helpful ways to make a plan, prepare your family,
and help you survive the stress of Mother Nature's strongest storms. In the past few years, the coastal bend has been spared from the worst of hurricane season. 2021 brought a close pass with Category 1 Hurricane Nicholas, which made landfall east of South Texas and eventually up to Sargent, Texas, along Matagorda Bay last September. The most formidable storm of the season was Category 4 Hurricane Ida. It did not impact Texas, but instead made landfall in Louisiana and left a trail of mayhem from the Gulf Coast to the Mid-Atlantic. In all, the rapidly intensifying storm became the fourth costliest hurricane in U.S. history. But just because we were fortunate last year doesn't mean we'll be so lucky in the future. In the past, we've seen our fair share of direct impacts. Carla in 1961, Beulah in 1967, Celia in 1970, Brett in 1999, Claudette in 2003, Allen in 1980, and of course, Hurricane Harvey in 2017, along with Hannah in 2020. Of these 8 notable storms, 6 were beginning of the season storms. The first storm could very well be the worst storm. Take, for instance, Hurricane Andrew. The Category 5 hurricane was the first storm of the 1992 season. It decimated much of the Miami metropolitan area in Florida on August 24th. This year will mark 30 years since that historic event, the storm that damaged the National Hurricane Center, which was relocated several miles inland to its current location on the campus of Florida International University.
You really need to take each and every warning seriously.
Hurricane season can be a bit overwhelming. When a storm threatens, it's a long game of hurry up and wait. Oftentimes, storms become monsters in a matter of hours. These rapidly intensifying storms can often come with a frenzy of alerts that can be confusing. The 3 types of hazards the National Hurricane Center will issue alerts for are a hurricane, a tropical storm, and for storm surge. Here's a simple way to understand what you should do if an alert is issued for your area. A watch means the ingredients for a storm are present, but the details are uncertain. You should watch out because impacts could begin within the next 48 hours. Now is the time to put your preparedness plan into action. When a warning is issued, it means that the storm is fully baked. Depending on the type of warning, those conditions are expected to impact our area within 36 hours. At this point, your preparation should be completed. And a newer term that came about in the last few years can really be confusing: potential tropical cyclone. This kind of storm is not a tropical storm or hurricane, but it's become obvious to the National Hurricane Center that it has the potential to be. The National Hurricane Center will issue watches and warnings for a PTC depending on the impacts expected, such as a tropical storm warning or a hurricane watch.
The National Hurricane Center is responsible for tracking activity in the tropics and issues alerts when storms threaten. But our local National Weather Service office right here in Corpus Christi also plays a big role. When a storm approaches the Gulf of Mexico, NWS Corpus Christi jumps into action, taking special weather observations and providing local knowledge of the coastal bend to hurricane specialists at the NHC.
To collect data, and that data that gets collected gets sent to the National Hurricane Center. They ingest that into their models, and that allows the models to give them the most accurate runs and predictions that they use for forecasting the track and intensity.
When a storm threatens the coastal bend, your Chris 6 weather team also works closely with NWS Corpus Christi to keep you ahead of the storm.
Whether you live on the island, in the coastal plain, or in our inland areas, there are hazards that can affect you from a tropical storm or a hurricane. The most deadly of these hazards is the storm surge, which is an abnormal rise in sea level due to the storm's winds pushing that water on shore. It is not just confined to the beaches, though. It does move inland. It can move several miles inland depending on if you live near a bay, an estuary, low-lying area, or a river. So you want to check the storm surge inundation map to see if you are under the risk of a storm surge. Also, strong winds with the storm, yes, they're normally around the center of the storm and decrease as the storm is moving inland. But sometimes, if the storm is strong enough and it's moving fast, those strong hurricane-force winds can make it up to 150 miles inland. So the highest risk for strong wind is along the coast, but it can also be sometimes a moderate risk in our inland areas, depending on the strength of the storm. Widespread torrential rains associated with tropical systems can bring flooding, and inland areas, you are included in that. If the storm should slow down or stall, sometimes you can have rain for days, and flooding can be a major issue. And then, in the spiral bands around the storm, there are embedded thunderstorms. Those thunderstorms sometimes can produce a tornado, and depending on the position of the system, all of the coastal bend is under a risk of getting a tornado. And do you know what to do if there is a tornado warning for your area? So before a hurricane moves in, you want to be prepared, determine your risk now, and have a plan in place on what to do.
Planning out an evacuation route is a vital part of the hurricane planning process. If you make the decision to actually leave when one of these storms threatens the coastal bend, it will help ease your mind, especially knowing you've already pre-planned a route to evacuate. Now, these are the signs you're going to want to watch out for right here if you plan on exiting the coastal bend to get out of harm's way. Now, the city of Corpus Christi is divided into 5 evacuation zones. These are the zones right here. The zone you live in will determine which evacuation route you'll take. So let's take a closer look at those. First, if you live along the immediate coastline, including Padre Island residents, Zone A1, do not take I-35 as that parallels the coastline. It is vitally important to get to I-37 and drive away from the coast. Now, Zone A2, which includes coastal residents of Flower Bluff, downtown, North Beach, and parts of the south side along Oso Creek, should take SPID, then over to I-37 and out of the danger zone. Zone A3, which includes non-coastal areas of Flower Bluff and parts of the east side of the city, as well as residents to the north of I-37. If you live in this zone, I-37 is going to be the best way out of town. Now, Zone B, which includes residents between Everhart and Airline down to Yorktown, also includes residents right along Ocean Drive and parts of downtown, and in addition, it includes residents in the Cow Allen area. Residents of the south side would take South Staples, which becomes FM 2444, to Highway 286 south. From there, you'll take FM 70 west to Bishop. You can also take Weber, which becomes FM 43, out to Driscoll. Now, residents closer to Interstate 37 should just take that right out of town. Now, Zone C residents, which includes those who live in the west and northwest side of Corpus Christi, central and southern areas of the city, can take Ayers to FM 43 towards Driscoll and out of town, or simply take I-37. Now, if you make the all-important decision to evacuate the area, plan to leave early and prepare for longer than expected drive times. Take along food, water, medications, and be sure your vehicle is fully gassed up once you've evacuated. Wait for the all-clear from emergency management officials before attempting to return back to your home.
Being prepared in case of a storm means more than being just ready to leave. It also means making sure you're covered if your home and belongings are damaged. Coming up, we'll look at what insurance you need to protect your home.
Plus, being ready for the long haul means stocking up now. Next, we'll look at what items you need to have for each person in your house. Stay with us.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special. Sponsored by Window World and Flint Hills Resources.
All right, let's talk about insurance and what you need to know, because, ladies and gentlemen, as they said at Faber College, knowledge is good. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the details on this, because what you need to know is vital to what you have in your possession. Who is and how do you contact your agent? Very, very important. What exactly is in your homeowner's renter's insurance policy? You need to know the details. In fact, you also need to know about flood insurance and how it works. And finally, be able to prove your possessions are yours, how much they cost, all the details. So let's talk about that. The homeowner's and renter's insurance policy, what is covered and what are the deductibles? Does it cover replacement cost or actual cash value? Does it provide for living expenses if you're displaced? All these things really matter if you have some big problems. So how about your flood insurance? Know your risk. What is your elevation? Are you susceptible to flooding from either rising water from streams or storm surge? Contact FEMA, the National Flood Insurance Program. They can help you with that. And the policy must be enforced 30 days before a claim can be filed. Vital. All right, now, how about your own items? Make a room-to-room video of your entire property. Be sure to include the attic, the garage, exterior, basement, anywhere you have items, and keep those receipts to prove the cost of ownership. And finally, the critical documents need to be in watertight, fireproof containers, and take them with you, because what you don't have with you is vital to what you can cover.
Living in the coastal bend, hurricane season means stocking up on non-perishables, water, batteries, you know the drill. But I've got a few tips to help make preparing your hurricane kit a little easier. Let's start with food. It's easy to reach for the junk food, but make sure to actually include foods that will help keep you and your family full. Protein bars and meal replacement shakes are a great option to include in your kit. And of course, canned goods. It's a no-brainer, but make sure you don't forget your can opener.
If it can't sit in a box for 6 months, it doesn't belong in your hurricane kit.
And if you're like me, you have plenty of these on hand. You don't need to go out and buy gallons and gallons of water. You can fill these up and save some money.
Now, when stocking up on water, aim for 1 gallon per person per day. Make sure your property is ready too. Maintain your landscaping and the exterior of your home throughout the season. Check around for any fixer-uppers and get that squared away ASAP. Remember to take photos and then upload all of your photos and videos to the cloud. Google Drive and Dropbox are just a few examples. Once uploaded, you'll have access from any location.
And don't forget about your furry friends. They need to get prepared for hurricane season too. Remember to include their food and important documents too.
For more hurricane kit ideas, head on over to christv.com/hurricane.
Coastal flooding during a hurricane can be a major problem, intensified by the storm surge. But do you know what causes the storm surge? Coming up, we'll look at what causes the storm surge and what dangers it poses.
Living on the coast means many people have their boats docked here. Next, we'll look at what you need to do to protect your boat ahead of a storm. Stay with us.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special. Sponsored by Window World and Flint Hills Resources.
Storm surge is an abnormal rise of water generated by a storm over and above the predicted astronomical tide. It is produced by water being pushed toward the shore by the force of the storm's winds. This rise in water can cause extreme flooding in coastal areas, particularly when the storm surge coincides with the high tide, resulting in storm tides reaching up to 20 feet or more in some cases. The rise of water with a storm surge can be as rapid as several feet in just a few minutes, and this wind-driven water has tremendous power. 1 cubic yard of seawater weighs almost a ton. A 1-foot deep storm surge can sweep your car off the road, and even a 6-inch surge is difficult to stand in. Compounding the destructive power of the rushing water is the large amount of floating debris that typically accompanies the surge. The National Hurricane Center is continually improving the quality of storm surge forecasts. Here is what's new for the 2022 season.
One of them is we're extending out some of the modeling when it comes to storm surge. Storm surge is 50% of the fatalities in these tropical systems. So, instead of having 48 hours, we really want to push that out to 3 days and 4 days if we can. So we're pushing out that modeling. The other part is we're going to have a brand new storm surge mapping system where we can put nice maps to really see exactly where the big trouble spots are when it comes to the storm surge. So those are two of the big things we got new this year.
We're known as the sparkling city by the sea for a reason. We're renowned for our beautiful downtown, scenic seawall, and picturesque marina. Of course, it's the miles of Gulf Coast natural bays that attract boaters from all over, which is why preparing in advance of a landfalling tropical system makes all the difference to protect your investment. Anchors, anchor chains, anchor shackles, anchor lines, safeguards, boat fenders, dock lines, boat stands and dollies, and gas cans are just some of the things you'll need to protect your boat before a tropical storm or hurricane impacts. If your boat is parked in a fixed dock, make sure you have multiple lines to secure your boat and make sure that they're not too tight. Water level fluctuation will ensure that torquing is not an issue and that extra line will allow a little give. If the dock is floating, then tighter lines are more beneficial since it will allow the boat to elevate with the docks as water levels go up and down. As an extra layer of protection, it's always a good idea to have this second rope, especially out here on the bow. And don't forget that safeguard. That safeguard is important to keep those lines from wearing down. If possible, one of the best options is to take the boat out of the water. There are local facilities available in the area that could store your boat safely. And most importantly of all, be sure that you have sufficient insurance for your vessel and be sure that you're checking it annually. As with any other insurance, you want to be sure that you take pictures of your vessel before and after a storm for any potential claim. All right, Paulo, we're good here. Let's go ahead and fire it up and take it on out.
The official forecast for the hurricane season is here. But what's the science behind the predictions? We'll look at the factors they consider before making the forecast.
You're watching Plan, Prepare, Survive, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special. Sponsored by Window World and Flint Hills Resources.
Well, folks, now it's time to talk about how we come up with our forecast, the science behind the forecast of the Atlantic hurricane season for any year. And there are some red flags we want to talk about when we mention this. First off is the sea surface temperature anomaly. It's whether it's above or below normal for this time of the year. Secondly is the strength and the duration of what we call La Nina, or its reciprocal El Nino. Is it cooler or warmer than normal? And finally, the West African monsoon, something you haven't talked about much and we haven't discussed, but it takes a big role in how we come up with this forecast. First off, let's talk about the sea surface temperature anomalies. Well, guess what? The Atlantic Basin is warmer than normal. It includes the Gulf of Mexico, which is much warmer than normal, the Caribbean warmer than normal, and the deep tropical Atlantic, what we call the main development region. All this favors development of more hurricanes. Secondly, is the strength and duration of La Nina. This is the Pacific Ocean along the equator, and that is an area of relatively cooler water. That cooler water weakens west to east wind shear across the Caribbean and the tropical Atlantic. That favors development as well. And finally, the West African monsoon, which is this area of convergence in the tropical portion of Africa. The stronger it is, the more tropical waves move off into the Atlantic Basin, and the more they do and the stronger they are. This is the pattern we see, not this one. This is inactive, that's active. So what do we come up with? Well, this is it. Warmer than normal sea surface temperature, more fuel for storms. La Nina, which means more wind development because of wind shear, and more active western monsoon, West Africa monsoon, more and stronger tropical waves. Prior seasons like this include 2001, 2008, 2011, and 2021. What happened during those years? Well, 18 named storms, On average, 8 hurricanes and 4 major hurricanes. The average is 14, 7, and 3. NOAA's forecast for this year is 14 to 21 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, and 3 to 6 major hurricanes. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, it only takes one.
Lastly, we here at Chris 6 News want to leave you with one key takeaway from this hurricane season. It's important to be prepared no matter what. You never know when a storm is going to make landfall or how strong it's going to be when it arrives until it's on your doorstep. Once you're under a watch or warning, it's too late. This is especially true with rapidly intensifying storms like Harvey that became a monster in just hours. Waiting until the last minute to get ready could cost you and your family your life.
You got to be careful, because if there's only one hurricane on Earth and if it hits you, it's a busy season. So you have to be ready every single season.
If you are caught in the path of a storm, especially a strong one, it will change your life forever. Take these tips and prepare now. For more preparedness tips and the latest on the tropics, head over to the Hurricane Center at kristv.com/hurricane.
And be sure to join the Coastal Bend Weather Watchers group on Facebook. We've made this exclusive Facebook group just for you. Here you'll find weather insights from fellow weather watchers from all around the Coastal Bend. Join our community, share your photos, and ask our team of weather experts questions about our ever-changing weather here in South Texas.
Be sure to stay with the Chris 6 weather team anytime storms threaten our sparkling city by the sea. From Rockport to Falfurrias, Kingsville to Beeville, and all of our Coastal Bend communities.
We're not only the largest team in South Texas, we're your weather experts.
With more than 100 years of experience, we know South Texas weather.
Most importantly, we're your neighbors. We'll be here to guide you through whatever the 2022 hurricane season throws our way.
Thank you for joining us for this special report, Plan, Prepare, Survive.
And thank you for choosing Chris 6 News.